Alright, in this video you're going to learn how to use the line tool to draw shapes. We're just going to draw a simple rectangle according to some criteria that we may have prior to drawing that rectangle. So we're going to choose the line tool to start out with, and we want to put this, we don't have to do it this way, but this is typically the way or the way that you may end up being tested. So what we'll do is we'll place this line using our Cartesian coordinates, and we will place it at, let's say, 10. Okay, so that's the starting point of our shape. All right, and we're going to draw a, let's say, a 10 by 20 rectangle. So I said 10 by 20, so that means it's going to be 10 units wide and 20 units high. All right, so this is how we would enter that information. 20 units for the height, and then come over to the side as 10 units. So always pay attention to that when you're drawing by instructions, such as you'll have on the certification test. It will tell you to place something maybe at a certain point, and obviously if it says that the size of this rectangle should be 10 by 20, then it means 10 wide, which would be your X dimension, and then 20, which would be your Y dimension. Okay, so we would have basically a vertical rectangle. Now once I have entered both of the distances of those lines, I got my 20 unit line going vertically and my 10 unit line going horizontally, I can just kind of use my reference geometry to finish it up. Okay, so there's my rectangle, and as you also have my properties box open. Now to get this property box to open, you can just click on any geometry, especially the geometry for which the information you seek to find. Click on it and then right click and then click on properties right there. Okay, and then that properties box comes up. Now this is how they verify your test accuracy, your drawing accuracy on the certification test. So you may need to know some of this information about this line to enter that information so that they can tell that you got the question correct. So I have this line highlighted, so all the information in here pertains to that line. They may ask us something like, where's your delta X, or where is your start Y, and that is the information that you enter for your answer. Okay, next what we'll do is we may want to move this rectangle somewhere, or actually before that, let's say that we want to know the distance of all the lines that make up this rectangle, a total distance. So we have to think, what do we do in order to get the total distance? We could select each individual line and look here and get our length right here in the properties panel. And just do that for each line, and then use a piece of paper to write them down and add it up, and then you'll have a total. However, that may not always be the most accurate way to do it, and it's definitely not the quickest way to do it. So what I'm going to do is click and then hover over the entire rectangle, and then I'm going to type the word join. So now this is all one entity. Okay, it's one shape. Everything it's basically like one line going all the way around, joining from one end to the other. And now I can look in the length area, and you see I get a different figure, and this would be the total length of all the lines included to make that shape. Now let's say that I want to move this rectangle. Maybe I have received some instructions to move this rectangle 20 units to the right. So what I would do is I would click on the move tool, or I could even just type the word move into the dynamic input, select the object, and then enter. And that tells me that I have that selected. Now I want to choose, there's many different ways you can move it, but you want a base point. Since my movement is just a general 20 units, I think that's what I said, 20 units to the right, then I'm just going to hover over it, and then I get my center point comes up. If your center point does not come up, then you want to come down here and click on this little drop down arrow next to your snap cursor, and change some of your snap behaviors. Make sure that you have geometric center turned on, and probably midpoint as well. Midpoint can also help you find the center of that rectangle. All right, so I have the center of this rectangle. I still need to specify the base point. I'm going to click right there on that center, and then that's my base point. Now I'm going to move it directly out to the right, and then I'm going to type in 20 for 20 units. Okay. Now notice, let me get out of that real quick. Let me do that again. I'm going to click, move, center. Okay. Notice how if I click on the center to make that my base point, notice my dynamic input basically starts that at 0. That's basically the 0 point. So it's relative, wherever it's at right now, it's relative to that center point. If I start moving it over to the right, it's the measurement that's inside of the dynamic input is relative to that point. So that way I can just type in 20 because I need to move it over 20 units to the right and then type enter, and now it's 20 units to the right. Okay, and if they ask you to do that, they'll probably have some more information in order to verify that you moved it correctly, that they'll want for you to record some of the information inside of this properties box or properties panel. Okay, the next thing we might need to do is copy is another good one, and we just simply select it and click on copy. All right, and it tells us again to choose a base point, and depending on where we want to place it, we would probably choose different areas to make a base point. However, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy it and just place a unit or a rectangle 20 units to the right, just like we did when we moved it. All right, so I'm going to select the center as my base point, and again, same thing. All I have to do is type in 20, and it places that copy 20 units to the right. Okay, so now I have two rectangles. The next thing you may be asked to do on the test is maybe create a relationship between a couple of shapes, in this instance a couple of rectangles. And in order to do that, they'll give us some instructions, and they may say something to the effect of move the center of the first rectangle to the top left apex, which would be right here, of the second rectangle, and place it there. So I'm going to click on the move tool, click on the object, click enter, hover to specify the base point, click to grab it, and then it told me to the top left apex, so that's where I'll place it, is on the top left apex. Okay, so anything like that, it's best to use all of your snaps when you're doing these things, because you want to be very accurate and precise. There's no guessing. We don't want to guess at anything. So we typically rely on those snaps to give us, to tie our geometry to certain locations and what have you, to create relationships. All right, so that is pretty much everything that you would need to know that I can think of for using lines and rectangles, and also editing and manipulating those lines and rectangles. So good luck. This is for question 1. So if you want to go back to question 1 now and see if you can answer that, that is fantastic.